And a very happy Wednesday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, at the LA City Council meeting this morning, while the members of the City Council are focused on the devastating wildfires in the Palisades and Altadena, there was one public commenter who was concerned that nobody was raising the issue of the fires on Figueroa.
Well, there's a lot that's going on Figueroa.
So for my general public
Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Services that for the past 1 week or so, I never see our council president, Harry Stoughton, did some outreach in the Figueroa because hundreds of Figueroa girls, they lost their home. Hundreds of Figueroa girls, they lost their condom.
They lost their condom?
Oh, boy.
For hundreds of Figueroa girls, they lost their everything, their customer. Their contact, their phone. So they are no longer reach out to their customer anymore. So our city...
Is there a fire we didn't know about?
That fire's the fire that's been going since the beginning of time.
Our city attorney, our council president, why nobody is reaching out to our council district 8 on Figueroa Street? Why our city mayor are no longer completely ignore the victim of the fire on Figueroa Street. There are millions Figueroa condoms are being damaged.
Well, you can't say that Figueroa doesn't have representation at City Hall.
There are millions Figueroa condoms are being damaged, and then we are waiting for our council president to repair. And then there are millions of...
Can you repair damaged condoms?
I think you have to just use a different one.
And then there are millions Figueroa girls lost their money, lost their customer, and then they need free money, free housing, free food, free condom, and then a free Jason probably.
Wait, what was that last one?
Free condom, and then a free Jason probably.
Okay, so I'll tell you what this is, and I can't believe I know this. It's so inside. There are several members of the public that are upset that at the beginning of the year, Marquise Harris Dawson ended phone public comment because they were sick of getting prank called by all the guys from Smoke and Scan. And so that's what Free Jason is. Jason was the guy that always call in and talk about the hookers on Figueroa and say things too dirty for the radio.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the guy in the hockey mask.
As far as we know.
Free Jason probably.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. We get a number of phone calls, a number of emails from you who are victims of the fire or are customers of the FAIR Plan or are worried that your insurance rates are going to go through the roof now that we have to pay for the most expensive fire in the history of the United States. Randy and I are not experts on insurance. So on the air a couple days ago, I said we should find an insurance expert to come on the program and take your calls. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do after the news at 2. If you have an insurance-related question to the fires, again, you don't have to be a victim of the fires to have a question. You could be, as I said before, a customer of the FAIR Plan or just worried about your rates, whatever the case may be. Give us a call at 2, and Marilyn Sparks, who's an insurance commissioner for the County of Los Angeles, will be here to take your calls. I'm going to do a very short introduction of her, and then I'm just going to go right to the phone. So if you have a question, give us a call right at 2, and we'll put you in the queue, and you'll have your opportunity to ask Marilyn, who will likely know the answers. Now, speaking of insurance, the former insurance commissioner of California, John Garamendi, has some tough words for the current insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara.
And part of it is he's blaming Ricardo Lara for getting us into this mess by giving the insurance companies everything they want in a process going back 2 years. He incentivized the insurance companies to pull out so they could get a better deal. That's what John Garamendi is alleging. For more, here's a fantastic report from ABC 7 in the Bay Area.
California's insurance commissioner has enacted a 1-year moratorium to protect people from having policies dropped in the affected areas in Southern California.
That's encouraging. But what about...
For your empty plot of land because your house burned down.
It's hard to think about it in those terms, but that's what people are dealing with.
That's encouraging. But what about everyone else? Tonight, 7 on Your Side, Stephanie Sierra investigates how we will all be affected here, Stephanie.
Yeah, we've been digging into this for months now. What's arguably the only incentive for insurers to do business here is the fact that California has the largest insurance market in the country and the 4th largest in the world. The question is, will insurers...
And they're leaving anyway.
They say they can't make any money here.
The question is, will insurers...
I think we're about 5 years away from the whole concept of insurance blowing up.
Well, if you notice, there are trade groups and there are entities that are large enough where they're self-insured. I remember at one point in time, my father was in the tire industry, and in the tire industry, the independent dealers were self-insured. They all got together because they were all having problems at that point in time with workman's comp insurance, and it ended up working out for them. I wonder if everyone is going to be pushed into some kind of self-insurance plan if these insurance companies continue to leave the state.
The question is, will insurers actually stay? And if they don't, what will the insurance commissioner do about it?
Nothing.
He's termed out, and he doesn't care. He's worried about getting elected to his next office.
California's insurance crisis is not a new problem.
Kind of stuck.
Certainly annoying.
We don't want our house to burn down.
Nor is the fact that officials lack confidence in the state's ability to address it.
We don't trust them.
I'm very disappointed.
How do we deal with this?
He's not doing his job.
Those are all different clips from different segments they've done just in the last year on Ricardo Lara.
But they all have the same theme.
What is new is California is implementing an insurance reform plan this year. It's taking center stage as the destruction unfolds in L.A. County in what's expected to be the costliest series of wildfires in the country's history, with estimated insured losses up to $30 billion.
Oh, boy.
And I have a feeling that number is going to go much higher.
That's according to estimates from Wells Fargo.
Well, and the reinsurance for the FAIR plan is only $6 billion. And Ricardo Lara's new plan means that the insurers who then have to bail out the FAIR plan when the FAIR plan goes under, they only have to put in $1 billion before they can pass on all of those costs to you and me.
That's right. So even if you don't live anywhere near the fire, you're going to see your rates explode, likely.
And this might be a nationwide thing.
That's according to estimates from Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs.
We are focused.
Which is why the state's plan is more significant now than ever, in part because the commissioner made this promise.
Insurance companies, for the first time, are committing to writing 85% of their business in the wildfire distressed areas.
Yet, as 7 on Your Side spent months reporting on, the fine print of Ricardo Lara's regulation allows insurers to only increase policies in high-risk areas by 5%.
They get to jack up all the rates. They don't have to bail out the FAIR plan nearly as much as they had to, and they only have to increase their coverage by 5%.
No, what you have going on here is an industry that can't make any money or claims to not be able to make any money, and you have an insurance commissioner who doesn't know which end is up, and the only thing he's concerned about is raising enough money so he can run for his next office because he's termed out as insurance commissioner. And I'd point this out. He's in that office without any background in insurance at all. The reason he ran for it is because he was being termed out of the state Senate, needed to play musical chairs, and calculated that he couldn't win for lieutenant governor, which requires you to do nothing. He thought he had his best chance at winning insurance commissioner, which turned out to be true, but then the state ends up with an insurance commissioner that doesn't know anything about the industry they're supposed to regulate.
And it's not just on him for running, it's also on all the major electeds who endorsed him, including, you know who endorsed Ricardo Lara for insurance commissioner?
Who?
Kamala Harris.
I will repeat myself.
That's the least surprising thing I've heard all day.
If they choose to at all.
So if you start at 0% coverage, after 2 years you get to 5% coverage, it would take 34 years to get to 85% coverage, which isn't going to work for people.
That's not a plan.
No, it's not.
Insurers have known about the changes for 2 years, which has raised concern the commissioner's own regulation may have incentivized insurers to drop policies ahead of its implementation.
The insurance companies, whether they're going broke or not, knew that they could push this guy over and they could get everything that they want and more by pulling out of the state of California, and it worked.
Yes, it did.
Ahead of its implementation.
Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. Not only his regulations, but his unwillingness to use the power that he has to hold the insurance companies accountable, not just on claims payment, but on writing policies in all parts of the state of California.
So what will Commissioner Lara be doing about it? In November, I asked him this.
Again, you have that legal authority to file suit against some of these insurers.
Of course. This is a crisis.
We're all aware, Commissioner. Will you do it?
Of course, we're always in litigation with insurance companies that break our rules and break our laws.
But
sure.
This was, by the way, a sit-down he did only after they harassed him for months and months and months and months and months because he wouldn't do a sit-down with them.
They made the story, Ricardo Lara won't do interviews, and he finally made himself available for a Zoom.
But 7 on Your Side could not find any litigation the state had filed against insurers as it relates to underwriting or rate hikes. Lara's office denied having the authority to do so. Yet after the 1991 Oakland firestorm, Congressman John Garamendi, who served as California's first elected insurance commissioner, was able to issue a record fine to Allstate, got insurers to provide an extra $3 million in coverage for victims, and implemented a rate freeze for several years.
And then term limits happened.
And then he ended up as lieutenant governor, I believe.
And then went to Congress where you don't have term limits. But if you could you envision a world where that guy may have just stayed in that job because he knew what he was doing there?
You know, we had this conversation yesterday with Tom McClintock about water policy and fire policy suffering in California due to term limits because no one in Sacramento has a long-term view of how the state should be run. They're only looking at it from the point of view of, I have a limited amount of time here. What can I do that will put me in best position to run for the next office? And that's what motivates your every decision. Well, if that's what motivates your every decision, the long-term health and success of the state of California is not at the top of your list.
Given what we're seeing in LA, do you think the commissioner should implement a rate freeze?
A rate freeze is a real possibility, but it would have to follow appropriate hearings that should be taking place immediately, and it should have actually been taking place over the last several months and couple of years, so that we could understand the nature of the market.
If the commissioner could hear you, Congressman, what would you tell him?
Get off your butt and do your job.
Oh, he hates him so much.
Well, what do you know? I'm going to have my own drop on the wall of John Garamendi.
I'm very kind of sketched.
Get off your butt and do your job.
That's fantastic.
Now, we've asked the commissioner if he has any plans to implement a rate freeze. We did not get a direct answer tonight, but we were told he's focused on getting claims paid fairly and quickly by insurance companies. As for us here in the Bay Area, we know every county has zip codes that are considered to be high risk, which means many of you watching may...
I think at this point, the entire state of California is high risk.
100%.
May have either been dropped or likely know a neighbor who has. So the question will continue to be, what is the commissioner willing to do within his authority to stabilize the market, which, as we've seen in the past, may require putting pressure on insurance companies.
Right. Maybe a lot of pressure.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Stephanie.
There's the latest on Ricardo Lara. What does he need to do, John Garamendi?
Get off your butt and do your job.
Now, as we mentioned before, if you are not impacted directly by the fires, you could still see your rates explode, particularly because of what's going on right now with the FAIR plan.
For more on that, we go to this report from KCAL.
This is known as the insurance of last resort, coverage for homeowners who've been turned down by traditional companies. Well, tonight we have some critically important information for anyone who may be on California's FAIR plan.
KCAL's Jeff Nguyen live in Altadena with how the fires could impact not just them, but all of us. Jeff.
Juan and Susie, look around this neighborhood and you will see signs of California's insurance system being tested. And tonight there are questions about whether once obscure programs will run out of money.
It used to be a very rare occurrence that someone would go on the FAIR plan. But now everybody knows somebody on the FAIR plan, including Gavin Newsom's on the FAIR plan.
Well, there are some communities where virtually everyone's on it, like Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear.
And the Palisades, because State Farm dropped 70% of their plans in the Palisades. And then I'm sure a lot of people noticed the irony of on Monday, the Rams had to move their game from Los Angeles to Phoenix because of the fires, and they played at State Farm Arena. Bastards.
One of the major insurance carriers dropped her because we were what they call the burn scar area.
Tiffany Carter went to a FEMA center Tuesday evening concerned about her mother's insurance coverage after they lost their family home in the Eaton fire.
It's the Fair Plan insurance policy.
The California Fair Plan is the insurer of last resort.
The Fair Plan, managed by the state, provides basic insurance coverage in high-risk areas where traditional carriers won't. According to the office of California Senator Alex Padilla, the Fair Plan had about $377 million available to pay claims as of last Friday.
That's not enough.
That's a drop in the bucket.
But they say the plan has nearly $6 billion in reinsurance available.
The Fair Plan is funded by...
But what are the estimates right now? $30 to $50 billion?
Yeah, that won't cover it either.
The Fair Plan.
And again, the insurance companies, thanks to Ricardo Lara, once they have to bail out the Fair Plan, can start passing on the cost to you after they put in the first billion.
Ultimately, it's going to be the homeowners of California, the insurance policy holders, that end up paying the bill.
But what do you do when insurance rates get to a point where owning a home in California is no longer affordable? I mean, it already isn't affordable, but you have people right on the line that might move out of the state or leave entirely, sell their homes at a loss because they can't afford to live here anymore.
Well, in the last election, quote unquote, inflation was a big issue. But it's really not inflation that people are talking about. It's the overall cost of living. It's the cost of gasoline. It's the cost of housing. It's the cost of food. It's the cost of rental cars. It's the cost of everything that you spend your money on. The moment you allow these insurance companies to explode the costs and pass it on to homeowners and insurance policy holders is the minute it gets a lot more expensive to live in California.
The Fair Plan is funded by private insurers that are required to fund it. And once the funds that are in there run out, the only place to replenish it from is from private insurers.
That could mean insurance companies raise rates for all their customers to pay for it.
And I think it goes faster than that, because based on the report that we played yesterday, it's not even that they can raise rates faster, which they're going to do anyway. And Ricardo Lara now gives them 60 days from beginning to end to raise rates. They can add surcharges to your bill based on the fees that they have to pay to bail out the Fair Plan. So those could be implemented immediately.
If any of you have ever lived in a building that is governed by an HOA, you know what happens when the elevator breaks and the pool leaks and there's problems with the foundation and there's problems with the roof and it needs to be repainted. They hit you with a special assessment and you have no say about it. And either you pay it or you're on their list.
Even if your apartment or home didn't burn, this disaster could cost you a lot, and some attorneys warn people who do file claims with the Fair Plan should be prepared for a fight. In addition, adjusters may use databases that take general averages from across the country without factoring local price surges.
What they end up doing is effectively lowballing people's claims, and people have.
There's going to be a lot of pissed off people once we get to the recovery part of this disaster.
Oh, yeah. You're going to see what they're willing to pay you, and your eyes are going to pop out of your head like you're staring at Jessica Rabbit's cleavage.
And then we're going to run tape over and over and over again of Gavin and Karen saying that we're going to make you whole again.
People have to go in, and it's a real challenge to fight to get fair compensation on the claims.
Which is a concern for Tiffany Carter, whose father came to California to achieve the American dream after being raised in St. Louis during the Great Depression.
To amass assets and wealth through hard work to be able to build something and leave a legacy for his family meant everything to him and my mom, who's also a business owner in the community.
And the Insurance Commissioner's Office is hosting a workshop in Pasadena this weekend, as well as a second workshop in Santa Monica next weekend to help policyholders file their claims. We're live in Altadena.
There's the latest on the Fair Plan, Johnny.
I'll tell you this. I know at 2 o'clock we're going to bring the insurance expert on who will take all of your calls related to insurance. But here's a piece of advice that I would offer, particularly those of you who are financially well off, whose homes burned down. I would not fill out the claim form myself. I would not deal with the insurance company myself, particularly if you're dealing with the FAIR plan. I would hire an attorney and have them do it for me to make sure that everything is filled out correctly and you end up getting compensated for everything that you're entitled to, because it sounds like they're already stacking the deck to screw you. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to listen to us after we sign off today at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store, the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts. Treat downloading the podcast of this show like it is your job.
Get off your butt and do your job.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
And Randy, we're getting off our butt in the Bay Area and moving down the dial.
How exciting is this? We do the Fix California Hour weeknights at 11 on KSFO in the Bay Area. KSFO has moved to AM 810, a bigger, stronger signal that you can hear all throughout Northern California. And at night, that signal gets even stronger, so you can hear it across state lines. You can hear it in Canada. And most importantly, you can hear it crystal clear in Southern California. So set a preset on your radio for AM 810 and listen to the Fix California Hour weeknights at 11.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
790 KABC welcomes Flogging Molly to the Hollywood Palladium on March 17th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
Right now, we're going through the sound of Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass in her press conference.
There's been quite a few press conferences, at least 2 a day. Notably, yesterday morning, they didn't take any questions, and I think they got a lot of flack for that because yesterday afternoon, Karen Bass was at the opening of a FEMA Assistance Center at UCLA with the FEMA director, and she was asked questions, and she's not really liking the tone from the local press, including Alex Michelson of Fox 11, who asked Karen Bass about the criticism that she keeps saying we're going to rebuild, and L.A. has a terrible track record at building anything.
As we move into the rebuilding phase of this, there are some...
2025, can we mic the freaking reporters?
They never do.
Well, it's funny because the morning ones at the Board of Supervisors, they hand a microphone to the reporter, and then they take the microphone away because they think the reporter won't ask a follow-up, but then they do, and it's off mic.
As we move into the rebuilding phase of this, there are some critics that question the city's competence at building housing before this even happened and in dealing with the fires and wonder whether the city can really handle this. What do you say to critics?
What I say is that the city can handle it. The city will handle it.
Just like she handled the homeless.
What planet is she living on where she thinks that they got this under control?
We have come together before. As I mentioned, I was here in 92. I was here in 94.
Someone else was in charge then.
That was Dick Reardon.
We did it then. We will do it now. And we have the extra burden, excitement, opportunity of the World Cup coming.
Okay, that's just kind of gross.
Yeah, what's that about?
Burden, excitement.
Well, of course we have to rebuild. We're having all these fancy sports events.
There are a bunch of people from all over the globe who are going to come to Los Angeles and play river dance with a ball.
That's just really gross to even bring that up right now.
Burden.
There are more important reasons to rebuild it, like people lost their lives and their livelihoods.
Well, you have to think about it from her point of view. She doesn't see herself as a local elected. She sees herself as someone who should have been vice president. So she was just in Ghana to attend the inauguration of the president of Ghana. When the World Cup comes to town, all of these world leaders, royalty, dignitaries, you name it, diplomats, they're going to come to watch the soccer. And from her point of view, those are her peers. So we need to look good so she impresses her peers.
That's if she's still mayor in 2026. Did you see the pictures that came out of Karen Bass at the embassy cocktail party when the fires broke out?
Not a good look.
No. Even people who are way to the left of center on social media are saying, I don't know how she survives this.
Well, there's a weird arc that's taken place. When all of this first started, and this is just anecdotal from me and my social media feeds, but my left-wing friends in Los Angeles were all in defense of Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom. It's all climate change. Climate change is the reason that all of this happened. The city was doing what the city could do, but because of climate change, they were totally overwhelmed. Don't be critical. Roll up your sleeves and help them. That was pretty much the response I saw mostly across the board. People who had their homes damaged, people who were living through it, they were angrier. But generally speaking, that's what I saw. But then that point of view became indefensible because climate change didn't cut the budget of the fire department. Climate change didn't decide to go to a cocktail party on another continent. Climate change didn't shut down the reservoir and forget to tell the fire department about it and then have 15 different explanations as to whether or not that impacted their ability to fight the fire. Climate change didn't send all of those erroneous evacuation text messages that scared everyone to death and put everyone on the freeway for no reason in the middle of the night. It got to a point to where you couldn't make that argument with a straight face. But what they've now done is they've now moved on to climate change made the fire bad, and Karen Bass has questions to answer, but how dare you blame Gavin? That's where we are right now. Whether or not we stay there when the music stops, I don't know. But it's interesting to me that they're all turning on Karen Bass at once and circling the wagons behind Gavin. Because if you think about it, from the point of view of just if you're a Democratic Party partisan, Gavin is yesterday's news. Gavin is term limited. In theory, he's done in California politics. So if anyone could take the blame and not pay the consequences, it's Gavin, with the exception of a potential presidential run. If you're Karen Bass, right now they're slitting your throat because this woman has to run for re-election in 2026. And if you're the incumbent, you run, in theory, on your record. And if her record is going up in smoke, as they say, you're going to lose your re-election bid. But they're all blaming her, and they're all protecting Gavin. It'll be interesting to see if she takes it on the chin or she fights back.
Burden, excitement, opportunity of the World Cup coming. And you know that prior to this tragedy, we were focused on getting ready for the world to come. We have to take care of Angelenos first. I know we will have LA strong. We will stand together. We will stand unified. I have just been...
Are we standing unified now?
No.
I mean, it's very heartwarming to see the thousands of people that come out who have been offering supplies and goods and everything that people might need.
The question was about building.
You notice she never answers the question. She is like Kamala 2.0. Kamala never directly answered a question through the campaign and paid a price for it. Karen Bass does the same thing. It doesn't matter what you ask her. She answers the question she wished you asked her.
Well, and then the reporter follows up and she gets mad. It's not a good look, especially when you have press conferences that people are paying close attention to because it is affecting their lives and livelihoods.
Yes, it is vital right now to be a good communicator and to get essential information to the people who need it. And she's doing the opposite.
I am completely confident that we will be able to do this because we will be correcting deficiencies in our bureaucracy.
She'd been talking about that ever since she started running for mayor. And she has talked about that the homeless crisis is an emergency. She declared an emergency, and she said she had to cut all the red tape for building for that. What red tape is left?
It's a nightmare, and she has no new ideas. And I'm telling you, if you listen to the first segment of today's show, you know, before you even get hit with the red tape, what's going to happen is the FAIR plan and the insurance companies are going to lowball you so you don't have the ability to rebuild.
in order to expedite the building. Let me just say, I can take a couple more questions, but we actually need to, I'll come to you next, but we actually need to clear out because the public is ready to come in. Yes.
Always finds a way to get out of answering more questions.
Always some excuse. Let's go to Ben in Los Angeles. Ben, hello.
I suspect that there is nothing behind Karen Bass. I was in her congressional district. When we tried to get help from her, we got the same empty, really, we'll help you, and no help came. And there are so many things the city could have done and homeowners would have done had they been educated. A lot of the fires start from furniture and shrubbery. And, of course, much of it comes from other houses that are on fire. What if we actually had public education and work with the insurance companies so they won't leave the state? I don't see any leadership. And even though Florida and Texas are a mess, it seems like their governors are more engaged and not, focusing on the White House. I think that White House path that we've got for governors is killing our state, in addition to term limits. So I really support your show. You are really the only intelligence now that LA Times is no longer connected. So I thank you for doing this show. And I also appreciate Channel 7. They seem to have found the cause of the Palisades fire, which it looks like maybe we didn't monitor the January 1st fire. Did you hear about that?
Oh, we have that story. We're going to do it later.
Yeah, well, you guys are kicking ass. You're really, I think, ultimately saving lives by educating us and creating a community of informed, really, I think, proactive citizens. And maybe we'll dissolve Sacramento, bring the capital to Los Angeles, where we can look at these cheaters, liars, and corrupt losers. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Mr. Newsom. Yeah, you can leave now.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. We appreciate it, and thank you for the kind words. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Where's Karen Bass's rhymes when we need them most? Nothing soothes anxiety like a Mother Goose-inspired poem from our incompetent, ill-equipped, room-temperature IQ mayor. She's so selfish.
If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, let's get help for you.
That's the Mother Goose we like.